Nostrovia, strax. Hola, ¿cómo estás tú? ¿Está bien? Arun Sawat Bly Rocks. Minya Zavud Gavrikol. I cannot speak Russian, I'm sorry. No, I can only say Shakmat. Хорошо. Доброе утро. But I can speak English and I can speak Thai, I can speak French, and just a few words of Russian, a few words of German, and that's pretty much it. And I wish to say to everybody good morning on this wonderful, beautiful Tuesday morning, September 2nd, in the year 2568 in the Buddhist calendar. It's the year 2025. I believe in the Cyrillic calendar, it is also 2025. I don't know. The Julian calendar. I think Russians still use the Julian calendar. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'd like to say good morning to all of you. Wassalamu alaikum. Everything, whatever it is, man. Whatever gets you feeling good about the morning, because we are all citizens of this big rock in this solar system called, well, in English, Earth, and some other languages, Le Monde, Mondo, Gaia, and things like that. So we're all citizens here, like it or not. And so long as we're breathing, none of us are leaving. How do you like that one? He's a poet and doesn't even know it. Yeah, so anyway, I had a very unique experience. Well, not unique, I should say unique to me experience yesterday. So I'll start off by saying this. I've lived in Thailand for over 25 years, pretty much. I've been with the same woman for nearly 25 years, maybe over 25 years. You know, we're married, and I love her very much, and she loves me, and you know, that's all in good. Hopefully, we'll have many more years ahead of us. Arun Suat, Sabadi Lupao. I got Budi Suat. So hopefully we'll have many more years ahead of us. But every day is a blessing, and no day is guaranteed. So with that in mind, try to make the best of it. I'm not immune to emotion. You know, I don't think, well, most people are not immune to emotion either. But a few years ago, I went back to the United States, because that's where I have a card that says that I belong to the United States. I'm their property, and if I want to pay into the system, I can continue paying into the system, and at some point I will receive benefits for this. And every country has some form of ownership papers on all of you. If you're Russian, Russia has papers on you. You are owned by Russia. If you are Ukrainian, you have papers that say you are owned by Ukraine. If you're Spanish, there are papers that say you are owned by Spain. Whatever country it is, England, France, Cuba, whatever country it is, every single country has papers that say you are their property. Anyway, but that's kind of like not really the point. Just something that I thought I wanted to add along the way. So I went back to the United States, and I wanted to make sure that I had my tax credits in order, right? Because my plan is to be able to have enough money to support myself and my wife when we get older and we're no longer able to, provide for ourselves. So I ended up going back. I ended up staying over 5 years, nearly 6 years. It was a long time, and all the time that I've been with my wife, I don't think that we'd ever been apart one day. It was very difficult. A lot of people go through it, millions of people have gone through it, and I will not go deep into it, but I think you guys get all know that from all over the world, people have been, men and women have had to go out and sort of forage for, to supply for their family. I don't need to make examples of what countries they are or anything like that. We just know. It's just an accepted fact. Anyway, so I was back in the United States. I was there to make money. And I was feeling pretty down one day. Hey, Scott74, good morning to you. How's everything? Good to see you. Everything's good here. It's a beautiful morning on September 2nd, the 568 in the Buddhist calendar and in the Gregorian calendar 2025. It is currently 5:43 in the morning, and Jeff Robinson, hey, good morning, how you doing? We are going for a walk, and along this walk, if you're so inclined, you can listen to some ramblings that I enjoy because it helps me. You guys are helping me because there's this interaction. Though it's not formally personal physically, it is an interaction nonetheless, and it helps me. And hopefully, I have something to add to the bag too. I'm telling this story about I lived in Thailand for most of my life, and I had to go back to the United States for a period of time. It was a little over 5 years, almost 6. So I guess that makes it a little over 5 years. But anyway, it was a very difficult time. And when I went back, particularly, I had no living family members there. All the friends that I had in the past, most of my friends were older when I was there. So they were either deceased or unavailable. Anyway, I had a very melancholic mood come over me one day, and I was thinking about, the meaning of life. Why do we go through all these things? Why am I going through this? Is it, how do I attach a purpose to it, and is it the right thing to do? Should I not be doing something more to better my position where I am at that current moment or whatever? All these thoughts were coming through, and I missed my wife dearly as well. I ended up actually crying for maybe the 2 or 3. As an adult, I probably cried 3 or 4 times, And one of those times was last night or yesterday afternoon, which ties into the story of the time that I was in New York when I went back there for over 5 years, almost 6. And what happened was I was feeling melancholic, And I wasn't quite sure what to do. I'd gotten into this routine, and I was really sick of the routine. And I was thinking to myself that a lot of people in the world are programmed and they're going through their routines themselves, and they just keep repeating the same routines over and over daily, until the day they die, and I think that a lot of people have either never questioned or stopped questioning why. Why are you going through this? Why is this happening? Why? What is the meaning behind all of this? And so that's how I was sort of thinking about, and then I talked to somebody, and they told me that my thoughts were suicidal. And I said, well, I don't really feel like hurting myself, so I don't know that they're suicidal, but maybe I do need help, so because I had cried and, I'm not bawled, I cried. Maybe I bawled, I don't know. Anyway, so I went to the closest emergency room in Jersey City. This was in Jersey City. And I went to the emergency room, walked in there, and they asked me what was the nature of my illness. And I paused because I had not yet been able to define what the nature of my malaise, my illness was. And I told the person, I said that, I just don't think that I should exist, or nor do I want to exist in this type of a world. And I was then, the lady took down notes, whatever. And I was told I could go over here, lay down on the cot, we'll send you a doctor your way, as soon as possible. And while you're laying in this bed, we're going to have somebody sit there and just, check you out. And so I'm naturally a curious guy. Hey, Mr. Balding, good morning. How you doing? Like a hamster in a wheel, exactly. Like a hamster in a wheel, And so I'm laying there on the bed, and there's this lady. She's sitting at the foot of the bed, and she's reading the Bible. And every now and then taking a look at me. I'm just I'm a curious person by nature, So, obviously, I'm not a complete idiot, but I sort of realized at this point that they were gearing towards putting me on some sort of a suicide watch. And I was just asked if I felt like harming myself or other people. And my answer was no, harming myself. I don't feel like harming other people. Hold on a second. I don't feel like harming myself, and I don't feel like harming other people. But this existence that has been created by the society for the masses, not for the elites. The elites have a lot more toys to play with and are generally a lot more in the know, or you could even say even better educated than the masses, which I don't think is a disputable fact. But certainly there are some stupid rich people. Anyway. But I just was not satisfied. I said, this is just, this can't be my reality, that I am I'm here, I'm working every day, 10, 12 hours at least, you know. I don't own anything, which is, I wouldn't want to own anything anyway. That's part of my self kind of like religion. I don't really believe in ownership of items and things like that because they're just items, you know. I don't believe in property of land because if anything, the land owns you, because the land will still be here after you're gone, and your decomposing body will be absorbed through nature. So that's kind of like the not the juxtaposition, but that's sort of the gist of sort of what my beliefs are. And I was telling this person, I said, I just don't really feel like I should exist. I don't think there's any reason for me to be alive. If this is the reality that's being presented to me, I don't really feel like being a part of it. So the actor said, well, do you want some help? And I said, yes, I would like some help. I don't know if you can give me the kind of help that I need, but I am interested to hear what you have to say. All ears. Well, here's what we want you to do. We want you to take off all your clothes, put on a smoking gown, and we'll bag it up for you. And we'll put you in a wheelchair. And then we'll take you up to this ward. And I'm laughing to myself because I know what's up, but I'm curious at the same time. Not only am I curious, but I'm also, I'm also creating in my mind some ulterior motives as to why I'm there. And which is where things like, well, if I can't and don't want to be part of this society anymore, why don't I just join the legions of people who get a monthly check for not being able to fit into society? Because that's what I started to think, I said, you know what? Why am I busting my ass for all this shit? I see these people getting checks every month, and I could go back to Thailand and I can live like a king with my wife for $1,000 a month. I'll be just fine. So maybe I ought to go up, listen to this doctor and see what they have to say. And so I go, took my clothes off, then document all my clothes and cards and whatever fiat money I have on me or whatever. Gown on, into the wheelchair I go, and I'm getting pushed onto the elevator, and the doors. Yeah, I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen Get Smart, but like the doors are behind me are closing like that, closing tightly. I'm thinking, man, wow, this is really interesting. I've never been there before. I'm just to see what's going on. So, get up to this ward, and very nice people working there. And they then check you out. Check out, make sure you don't have any weapons on you, in any cracks or crevices, and sort of want to get an idea of your state of your mental well-being or ill-being. And they give you these like paper, clothes that you can put on. I don't know if you call them clothes or not, but it's quite dehumanizing, as a matter of fact. Although, if you do stay there long enough and you have brought clothes with you, they will allow you to change into your civilian clothes or something like that. But by and large, each person that gets admitted will be asked to put on these pieces of paper clothes. Anyway, did that. And I was then told that I could shower. I had a room. These are the rules. X, Y, Z. And I was like, all right, that's cool. They gave me a room. Well, I was a sole occupant, a bed, not very comfortable, but a bed nonetheless. I mean, I had an apartment to go to, but like I said, I was curious. And I started formulating ideas about how I might be able to, apply for public assistance rather than bust my ass every single day for 10 to 12 hours, earning absolutely nothing that I can, rely on in the future until I break down and crumble into a stack of bones, which I'm not willing to do, So, and my plan, my whole plan is based around getting back to my wife, the woman that I love, the woman that loves me, and so I go through this thing. Oh boy, didn't want to see that. Poor cat. Ugh, stinks. So, I go in that thing and I say I get the room, whatever, and I just lay down and I'm just laying there and stuff like that, and I haven't seen any doctors or psychiatrists or anything like that at this time, and they say it's medication time. I'm like, whoa. Well, you're talking to somebody who used to use drugs. When I was a kid, I used drugs. It's a form of entertainment. And quite long periods of my adult life, I was a consumption. I wasn't a shareholder, but I spent enough money to be a shareholder in some of the major beer companies. I didn't like hard alcohol. I never have. I did drink a lot of beer. And I don't drink anymore. I haven't had a drink in 4 years. I haven't had a cigarette in 4 years. About that time. I'm not a believer in counting days and stuff like that, but I actually am a believer in counting days. The days that I count are the days that I'm awake. Like I count today, September 2nd. This is the day that I'm counting, because today is the day. Right? We have the whole day ahead of us. Let's make the most of it. Let's make the best of it. When I had gone into this whole thing, this whole escapade of going into what, people call the psych ward or whatever it is, I had never said that I had intended to harm myself or harm other people. I was just questioning the, state of reality, or the state that I perceived as reality, of the meaning of life and what we were doing there and everything like that. And that led me to get escorted into paper clothes and locked doors and tucked away. And at that time I was thinking, wow, this is great. My plan actually might work. They might actually do this. I'm going to get over. Well, I ended up staying there 7 days and taking the medications that they gave me, which made me feel a little bit better, actually, to be honest with you. And I'll get into that in a second. But, twice while I was there, once in the middle of a few days after I had been there, my presence was requested in a room with one of those very long office tables with people sitting around them with pencils and pads and stuff, and lab coats, and looking very important. And I can't even remember one question that was asked, to be honest with you. I don't know. Maybe they asked me again if I felt like harming myself or other people. The answer to that question, which had always been the answer to that question, was no, I don't. And that was like, I'd like to say 2 or 3 days into this experience, and then the Arun Suwat, and good morning, boss. And then, then the second time that I was invited into this room was the second to last day that I was there. So they prepare they prepare paperwork for your release and stuff like that, which they take their time doing. And there's a reason for all of this bureaucracy that was going on, is because I had insurance. I had insurance. And everybody in that place has insurance. So, in order to get the money to keep the place going, people who question reality and the purpose of life and whether or not they should be here or not, or whatever state of mind they're in, not excluding suicidal or homicidal thoughts, you're more than welcome to go. And they will contact your insurance company, and they'll tell you, your insurance company, that you are either suicidal or homicidal. They don't ask you. Of course, you're not in a position to be asked these questions. You are a patient, and you have been admitted. And by being admitted, you have foregone and signed away all of your rights. So, that part I didn't dig too much. I didn't like that too much. But I did have like a brief discussion with what their what they call their psychiatrist or whatever. I mean, we're all psychiatrists to some degree. And the conversation lasted less than 5 minutes, and I repeated what I said previously. I was just doubting the state of existence and hamster on the wheel type of thing, and so on. And this was the second day that I was there, and the second day that I received. First day I had taken the medication they gave me. I didn't question what it was, but it made me kind of a little bit like a zombie, which was cool because I just felt like laying down on the bed anyway, because I've been working 10, 12 hours a day at least, making almost no money. So I was like, well, you know what? This is like a vacation. So anyway, the psychiatrist then says, well, look, you're suffering from manic depression. Wow, it's news to me. I didn't know I was suffering from manic depression. What's manic depression? Manic depression is, you might have emotional mood swings and stuff like that, which I couldn't really believe that I have. I mean, I've never heard anybody tell me that, I am bipolar or manic or anything like that, or that I was suicidal or homicidal or anything like that, whatever. Well, okay, this is what the psychiatrist said. But what she said is that we will prescribe you Zoloft, or there's like other names for it, like Surlift or Surloft. Basically, I mean, these are just names. But what it is that it's a pill which plays with your the sertraline dopamine levels in your brain, right? So if you start taking them, sertraline levels in your brain will be then, I guess what some might call stabilized, or something like that. And I did take it, and I took it for a while, because I did, I started having like less sensitivity, and that less sensitivity helped me run around that hamster wheel. But only because I was taking those pills. But if I didn't take those pills, I probably wouldn't have continued to run around on that hamster wheel, And if I didn't have an end game plan, I'd probably be out there looking to raise an army to change the way the system works, because I don't think it's working very well. So I guess you might have your like little manic evidence right there. So so I took them, and I actually ended up taking them for a couple of years. I actually stopped taking them about 4 days ago because I'd quit alcohol. I quit all substances, cigarettes, and stuff like that. I wanted my body to be pure. I wanted my mind to be mine. I didn't want to drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes and stuff like that. So 4 days ago, I decided that I was going to stop taking this sertraline, Zoloft, or whatever. And I had a little difficulty sleeping and stuff like that, in the beginning. No real mood swings or anything like that. But yesterday, I went to bed around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, not 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so something like that. And I was aware that I was crying, but I was asleep. And I was still in my I guess, like semi-slumber, the state between sleep and sleep and consciousness. I guess it's sort of like what they call sleep paralysis. I guess something like that. I was aware, but I was still in my dream, and I was crying, and I could just so vividly see where I was in this dream. And in this dream, I was in my early 20s, and my mother was still alive. And I was recounting events when in my early 20s and maybe even before. And, my mother's passed on quite a few years now, and so is my father. And those are the other times I cried. Hi. 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 So those are the only other times in my life that I'm not the only times in my life that I ever cried, but those are two other times that, I had a good cry. My mother passed away and my father passed away, which I'm not going to go into right now. But so yesterday, I'm crying. My wife comes in and she's like, and I didn't wake. I wasn't fully conscious, but I was in that sort of sleep paralysis state. And she's, she comes over, and she's like, she had like a cloth, a wet, not like a damp cloth, and she's wiping my face with it. She says, baby, what's going on? What's going on? And I even still feel now about it, and I was like, I was just dreaming about that time, and it wasn't just that one time, it was just a period of times, and actually, quite frankly, they were very happy memories, being around people who have since passed that I loved and was loved by. So she, I explained that to my wife, and she was very sympathetic and empathetic to my Sorry. Boy. Get it together. So she was very sympathetic and empathetic, to, the feelings that had come over me. And that was wonderful. God bless her for being there and loving and everything like that, But I saw, the thing is that I realize now I realized pretty quickly that this was the side effects of withdrawing from Zoloft or sertraline or sertraline or Surlift or whatever you want to call it, which is a sertraline inhibitor. Brain. Oh, hold on a second before we go anywhere. We can't pass this moment up because we're here every single day. At this moment, and it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful shot, we are facing west. And you'll see that this rice field is looking very healthy. I can see tinges of yellow. I know that the rice season's harvested in November. So in 2 months from now, this will be harvested. Anyway, you can see off in the distance some houses, trees, and behind that some clouds and mountains and stuff like that. And if you keep walking west from here, you'll end up in Shan State, and then keep walking, you'll end up in Myanmar, which I don't recommend going to right now because there's a civil war going on there, and it's pretty just not a good idea. And then if you kept walking west, you'd end up in the Indian Ocean. And as always, when we get to this point, we turn east to look for the star of our show. And unfortunately, the star of our show is not here yet. But it's only, I promise you, the star of our show will make an appearance at some point today. And those are the mountains it will dramatically arise from. And headed east that way, you will eventually, if you kept walking as the crow flies, you will walk across Laos, and across Laos you will end up in Vietnam, and if you keep walking through Vietnam, you'll end up in the Pacific Ocean. And as I always say, if you're a strong enough swimmer, you could probably swim to the west coast of North America and end up in California. And there might have been somebody who did it throughout, in the millennia, that humans and human-like species have been around and stuff like that. So who knows? Anyway, so in conclusion to the story that we're just going through is that I was having withdrawals from, I don't know if you would call that a withdrawal though. I would call, maybe that was more like a deposit. Like I was having my emotions deposited into my brain rather than being withdrawn. You know what I'm saying? Mr. Balding, probably your brain just readjusting after long-term meds. It will get better, bro. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. And I truly do believe that. I believe in neuroplasticity. I believe in positivity, positive thoughts, and that it takes work and effort to be happy, just as it takes a little bit less effort to be completely miserable. But I had gotten my whole self into this situation because I was having a day where I was questioning things. I wasn't suicidal or anything like that. I was just curious once I started going through that process. And then as being a human being, I started becoming opportunistic, right? Wondering if this was going to lead to me getting a free ride, which it did not lead to, unfortunately. I would have taken it, and I'd still take it if I could get it, but I'm not getting it, and I'm not pursuing it or anything like that. It's just, I'm a human being, like you say, and human beings are opportunistic at times. So anyway, so I was having the neurons refiring in my brain, so I would call it a deposit rather than going through withdrawal. And it just was like that wave of emotion came over me. But which leads to question, is it really right to be prescribing these medications to people? I mean, people who, express disdain for their present state of being, not necessarily even saying that they're suicidal or homicidal. Do you think that's really a good idea? I don't know. I have an idea that if the powers that be in the hospitals are in contact with a ladder, they are a rung on the ladder of the power pyramid, that prescribing the masses Zoloft or other psychotropic drugs, you know, to pacify the nation, pacify the masses. I think that's one of the reasons why they legalized marijuana and they have these drugs. I've seen them, and they're absolutely horrifying to see. And in Kensington, Philadelphia, and other places in the United States, like open air drug markets and stuff like that. Absolutely horrifying. But my suspicion is that this is part of sort of by design, in a way. I mean, if you really wanted a solution to the problem, you could. I could think of one, which I won't say online, but maybe I should. But there are solutions to these things. And I mean, as far as like humans taking psychoactive drugs like DMT and ayahuasca and stuff like that, been doing that for thousands of years. I've never had either one of them. And I don't think at this stage of the game, I'm too interested in trying either one. My interests are vastly more invested in what my perception of reality is. And that leads to a whole bunch of other doors you could pick to go through. I once heard that reality is whatever you perceive it, and there's a lot of discussions on this, and I'm sure you can find it or have found it already. And it's certainly a wonderful, should I use the word wonderful? Rabbit hole or whatever. It's a topic, So, yeah. So I haven't taken any sertraline, Zoloft, or anything like that in 4 days now, and I do have a little more emotion. Like in telling you guys this story, I choked up a couple of times. Had to Arun Suat, yeah, Sabadi Lupao. I had to control myself, which is what human beings have to do. This is the responsibility of grown men, grown women, and adults are at times have to control their emotions. So I don't think putting people on Zoloft to pacify them, because what you're doing is you're pacifying the masses or something like that, so people don't, probably so they don't form a revolution. And that's when I got into the thing about marijuana and legalizing drugs and drug sanctuaries and drug whatever, Kensington, Philadelphia, and other places in Washington, I think Spokane, San Francisco, New York, and stuff like that. It's right out there in the open. Now, I mean, I'm 55 years old, and the only time that I have ever seen this is on the internet, because when I lived in the United States, that didn't exist. Okay, it wasn't like that. There were drug dens. We would call them shooting galleries, or crack houses, or something like that. Where people would congregate and for the consumption of drugs. But now it's just blast out right out there. So I would say that there is some benefit that I tried to glean some sort of benefit for what is happening, and that is, well, now everybody can see what it's doing to people. But on the other hand, when I was a teenager, when I was and a young man, when I was a young man in the 70s, not a young man, when I was a boy in the 70s, poor people, because drugs are mainly consumed by the lower income people. The drug of choice back then was heroin, right? And then 1980 something came around, and then it became crack, right? And now they have this thing called xylazine and what's the other thing? That other thing that other thing that they're taking. Xylazine mixed with what's the name of that thing? I know you guys in the chat know what I'm talking about. Uh, it's an opioid, right? It's cheap, comes in a pill form, and you know, you mix xylazine and this. Fentanyl. That's what it is. It's fentanyl. That's what I'm looking for the word. Xylazine, fentanyl, and you get these. You get zombies, and it's horrifying to look at. Obviously, I mean, you see these documentaries, personal documentaries people have made on YouTube. And it's just absolutely frightening. It's sickening. It's like incredible. It's like out of a science fiction movie. People walking around with rotted limbs. And the thing is, I had heard about this type of drug epidemic, but it didn't first show up in the United States. It first showed up in Russia and in Eastern Europe. And what the name it was given was crocodile, right? So they called it crocodile, Krodil, or crocodile, I guess. I think that's what that means. Anyway, you had people there who were injecting this synthetic drug, and I don't even know if it's still on YouTube, because it's like the way they showed it is like absolutely horrifying. I mean, there was just one picture where a woman who was addicted to this was she was alive. She's laying on a slab, and the doctor reaches into her vagina and just pulls out her womb, to show how it rots the inside. This is what's happening. So as far as I know, it didn't start in the West, in this hemisphere, and not this hemisphere. I live in the East, but in North America, South America, whatever. You can look it up online if you just look for crocodiles, Krodil, and it's frightening, it's horrifying, and it's incredibly dangerous to the people who are using it, and apparently incredibly addictive. Like, I tried cocaine as a young kid, but I didn't get addicted. And they're saying this fentanyl and xylazine and stuff like that, you take it one time, either it can kill you or it can enslave you from the very first hit. And I used to say that about cocaine as well, but I didn't have that kind of experience, although I would certainly not suggest anybody taking any kind of drugs ever, narcotics or anything like that. They can be quite destructive to people's lives. And even though, like, Freud used to prescribe cocaine to his mother, and Coca-Cola used to have cocaine as an active ingredient. So a lot of things are subject to perception. Anyway, so yeah, Mr. Balding, first I'll say Scott74 says, if everyone is docile, easily controlled. Exactly. And then Mr. Balding says, sick people are big business. Yeah, you guys, that's it, right? Isn't that what it is? I mean, like, I don't think any strong-willed adult, and I don't mean male, perhaps a few females, but any strong-willed adult would tolerate the kinds of disparities that there are in the world right now. Like, and I'll go so far as to say is the West is totally weak and allowed the caliphate to move, the Islamic caliphate to move in with no resistance. Did they forget about the Iberian Peninsula? 800 years of being slaves to the Muslims? Did they forget about Charles Martel from France, and Charlemagne, Isabel and Ferdinand, who, some might say had extreme ways of dealing with their independence in the Reconquista period, which ended in 1492, incidentally. No army, no nothing, just an idea, walk in, by the hundreds of thousands and take over the Western world. And that is what their goal is. That's what the Muslim goal is. And I hate to say it. I don't hate to say it. I have freed myself of being afraid to say it, because sometimes people are afraid to say the truth. And it's the truth. That is the truth. And if you know anything about Islam, because I had to educate myself, you will find that what they have, their belief system, is that they must control the whole world in order for their religion to be successful. And that there are four kinds of choices people have. One is, when they come to you, you can convert. You will be allowed to convert, and you will not be a slave. You can be a member of their society if you convert and follow Sharia law. The second choice is, you can pay a tax. Your people can pay a tax. In other words, and the scholars, the Muslim and Islamic scholars will tell you that what they will say, the way they say it is, look, you just pay this little bit of tax and we're going to protect you from any invaders or anything like that. They're not protecting you from any fucking invaders or anything. It's an extortion, you know? Other religions do this. I've seen this, and I'm not going to get into that right at this moment because we're running out of time. But that's the second choice you have. The third choice you have is to stay inside of the caliphate, any caliphate, and reject Islam. But you're not allowed to reject it without paying tax. And so they will kill you. And then the fourth option you have is to run. Well, what's going to happen, when these super weak, I don't even know if, I don't even know if you can call them Democrats, because there's nothing democratic about what's being done. It's like insanity. It's like it's total, absolute insanity. What's happening in Europe now? People are trying to say, regain their rights for their culture and stuff like that. Everybody has a right to their culture. You just can't go to some country. It happened before with colonialism and shit like that. But there is blowback. And right now we're going through a period of blowback. Thank goodness. I don't share the values of Islam. I respect it. I'm not going to any Muslim countries, and I have discussions with Muslim people. I don't have any problem with the people. I have zero problem with the people. But when you try to impose an idea on me, or when people try to impose ideas on people, you might find that people don't always agree with you. So, given the choice that I do have the choice, and I don't have to pay a terror tax, and I don't have to convert, and I don't have to run anywhere, I'm very happy where I am. But I am allowed to have my opinion on this. And a lot of people in Ireland and England, France, Spain, other countries, Sweden, and yes, Burkina Faso, also, Chad, Niger, all of these countries are doing the same thing. They are rejecting the influence of outsiders. That not the influence, but the control of outsiders within their natural borders, or the borders that they've managed to control for, or somewhat control over the last hundreds of years. So what's happening in Burkina Faso when they're expelling the French from there is, I don't have a problem with it. I think Burkina Faso, I like Traore. I think that he's an interesting, very articulate, incredibly intelligent, charismatic leader. And I really admire what he's doing. But on the same token, that doesn't exclude Sweden, England, France, Germany, Ireland, the United States, any country in the world who has a cultural identity to try to preserve their own cultural identity. So I applaud Traore, the prime minister of Burkina Faso, who unified 3 or 4 countries in the Sahel region of Africa. I applaud him. I think what he did is fantastic. You know, if they allow Westerners to get passports to come and visit legally, hey man, I might go and take a look as a visitor, or something like that. If I was young enough, maybe I'd fall in love with a woman who was from that country, and then try to make a family and a life there. Who knows? I don't know, but I know that what the right for self-determination is certainly something that's been discussed to this is a pun. It's a discussion that has been discussed to death. A little bit morbid. I'm a sick dude. Maybe I do belong in that ward. Get back on that medication. Anyway. What's up, Ravine, Ebenezer? Good morning. How are you? Gumaru, good morning. How's everything? And we went on a little today, and I really appreciate you guys listening to me. And the input that you guys gave is just absolutely are gems. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And it's just blessed to be here with you all. And thank you so much for being a part of my day. And I'm thankful for being a part of your day. So, on that note, I will say, wherever you are on this planet, have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good... Love you all.